Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the public hearing for the Truth and Taxation 2022 levy ordinances. I will open it up to the floor for public comment, but before those are addressed, I'm going to turn it over to Finance Director Sherry Grafin to read through the topic that is on the agenda for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Prospect Heights is holding a public hearing relative for its 2022 tax levies, which will be payable in 2023. Truth and taxation hearings are only required by state law for requests to the county in excess of 105% over the previous year's extension. City of Prospect Heights is estimating a 6.94 overall increase over the prior year's extension. And therefore, we're holding this hearing as a sign of good governance to allow for open communication and transparency. The requested increase is projected to capture additional EAV for any new property or new construction within the city, as well as to maintain funds for our operating cost increases that we anticipate due to inflation. Costs that will be impacted include police pension contributions, repairs, maintenance, and improvements in our two special service areas 5 and 8. The actual tax operating levy extension will be limited to the 5% CPI increase and any additional increase relative to new construction and new property within the boundaries. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Before we proceed, Deputy Clerk Schultheis, could I just have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Cameron.
Here.
Alderman Ludvigsen.
Here.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Here.
Alderman Dash.
Here.
Mayor Dolick.
Here.
Treasurer Tibbetts. And he is here. And City Clerk Vizajnuk is out by previous notification.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. At this point, I would like to open it up to public comments, either here in person or online, if anyone wishes to speak. Do we have anyone online that wishes to speak? I believe we do not have anyone. At this point, I will close the floor to public comments. Unless there are any questions here, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing for the Truth and Taxation 2022 levy ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. All here now. It's almost 6. It is 6:30. Deputy Clerk Schultheis, would you read the preamble for us, please?
Thank you. In accordance with the applicable statutes of the State of Illinois and ordinances of the City of Prospect Heights, notice is hereby given that the City Council regular meeting of the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Prospect Heights is being held on Monday, November 28th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. in person in the Council Chambers, Prospect Heights City Hall, 8 North Elmhurst Road, Prospect Heights, Illinois, and simulcast for viewing on Zoom. Acting Mayor Matthew Dolick presiding. This meeting will be broadcast live on the following cable channels: Comcast and WOW Channel 17 and AT&T U-verse Channel 99. It will also be recorded and televised on Comcast and WOW Channel 17 and AT&T U-verse Channel 99. Attendees who wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be provided an opportunity during the meeting. There's a 5-minute time limit for speakers.
All right, thank you. Then at this time, I'd like to call to order the City Council regular meeting being held tonight, Monday, November 28th, 2022 at 6:32 p.m. In the council chambers of Prospect City Hall, located at 8 North Elmhurst Road in Prospect Heights. Madam Clerk, or Deputy Clerk, I should say, could I have a roll call to establish the quorum?
Yes, thank you. Alderman Michelle Cameron.
Here.
Alderman Pat Lovickson,
Here.
Alderman Wendy Morgan Adams,
Here.
Alderman Danielle Dash,
Here.
Acting Mayor Alderman Matt Dolick,
Here.
City Treasurer Rich Tibbetts,
I'm here.
and the city clerk is out with previous notification.
Thank you. So all 5 of us are here, so we do have a quorum. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance. All right, thank you. The first order of business is the approval of minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the November 14th, 2022 City Council Workshop Meeting minutes?
So moved. Morgan Adams.
Second, Cameron.
I have a motion and a second. Could I have a roll call, please? Actually, I should ask, are there any corrections? If there are none, could I have a roll call?
Alderman Dash? Sorry, Alderman Dash,
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams,
Aye.
Alderman Cameron,
Aye.
Alderman Lovickson,
Aye.
and Mayor Dolick.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. And tonight, we do have a presentation from Chicago Executive Airport for their monthly update presented by Director Scott Saywert.
Thank you, Mayor and council and staff and citizens. Yeah, I have it, it's official, I've got it on our official tapestry paper, so thank you very much for having me, and just want to let you know, the state of the airport is, we're doing quite well. The number of operations, that's like a sliding year, 12-month year, it's just under 100,000. So that's, it's been a great number for us, and especially since COVID. And you probably heard that from the other director, so I'm not sure. Heard it before. Customs operations, especially since we built the new building, we're over 500 operations on a sliding year-to-date scale too. So that's another good sign. It's back to pre-COVID levels. And so getting more into the nitty-gritty of what's going on, we had an RFP recently for the old 94th Aero Squadron area. So we've got quite a few proposals on that. So that's a very great indicator that you know, something that they'll be well served the airport and the communities there. The financial audit's going on, so we're trying to time it so that it'll work well with what the city's audit schedules are, and because I think it's in December or January or so that you need the information. So that's going on, and we plan on having it completed in early December. The noise exposure map, which is the FAA requires us to have on kind of like the noise profiles, we have to update that, so we're going through that right now. And there was a meeting, the FAA requires meetings in a different process. So that's already taken place, and it was advertised not only on social media and newspapers, but also the people that are in the area, the existing area, were notified too as well. And we happen to have 13 members of that community attended it. And everything's proceeding on schedule with the FAA. We're also awaiting the final approval from the RSIP, the Residential Sound Improvement Program, that we work with the FAA with people in that area. So it's going through a final review, and once that's done, we can go ahead and roll it out to the next step. The airport tours are back, if anybody wants an airport tour. But we had a couple groups from high schools and from colleges come in, and they, you know, for possible thinking of an employment area. So it's good that they're coming and seeing it, and even more important, in 214, we've got a program where it's like a shadowing program. So in addition to their classrooms, you know, the classroom And we do have a classroom actually over with the hangars. Jeff, our executive director, cycles them through not only our airport operations and our airport administration, but they also spend time with FBOs, the fixed-based operators that handle all the jets, and also with the maintenance people that do maintenance on aircraft. So they can get a nice vertical and horizontal, I did that wrong, vertical and horizontal understanding that it's not maybe just flying aircraft, but there's a lot of different segments that go on in this occupation. I know Jeff's here, our executive director, Jeff Miller, and he will go into detail and explain the proposed budget amendment, so I'll leave the discussion with him. Okay? Any messages? Any questions? Let me check. I'll have to see if we have any messages. Any questions?
Any questions?
We're good?
Thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
it. Next item is public comment on agenda matters. Deputy Clerk Schultheis, is anyone registered, or is there anyone online that wishes to speak?
No one has registered.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak? If not, that brings us to the consent agenda. The items listed on the consent agenda here. First, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I just have one request for a change.
I was going to ask if there were any comments, but could I have a second first before
Okay.
we open it up?
Second, Cameron.
All right, thank you. You had a question or a comment? Oh.
Yeah, so on the calendar for item A, you have I appreciate that you changed the date from the 25th, which is Yom Kippur, to Wednesday, the 27th, but I was going to ask if you could change it to Tuesday, the 26th. That holiday is only one day. And the only reason I asked to change is because, well, actually, you know what? Wait a minute, that is, let me just check, make sure. I believe it's Yom Kippur. Yeah, because the 16th is Rosh Hashanah, so you know what, it's okay, leave it on Wednesday, that's fine.
You sure?
Second thought, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Are there any other conflicts on the city council meeting calendar? Are there any other questions regarding any of the items on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, was somebody going to speak from the airport? They have the one item.
Yeah, that
Just
item D, right, item D. I'd like to
Okay,
hear
please
from Mr. Miller.
step right up.
Honorable Mayor Dolick and Alderman Livingston, thank you. I don't think we had a pleasure to meet yet, so I'm Jeffrey Miller, your Executive Director over at the airport. Our budget, so two things I've learned over the last year of being here: Cook County taxes, and it's called Pewaukee, the airport, right? Not Chicago Executive. But as we look at our budget, a couple of things I've been going over as leases over the last few years that have been signed. There was some different opinion back and forth about who was paying Cook County taxes. Looking at our budget, there are back taxes for Cook County for several of the parcels that are under our responsibility as the airport. So we're asking for a $715,000 budget amendment to get those taxes up to date, and then as a group, we'll be budgeting those taxes into our budget moving forward, and it's just to pay the taxes up to date on several parcels that the airport actually owns.
How many years back does this go?
2017, I think, is the first year for the taxes on several of these parcels. And they've changed hands. Some of the documentation wasn't coming to the airport, et cetera, with Cook County, but we've been working with our attorney and our counsel to make sure that we've gotten these up to date, which is the budget request at this point.
Okay.
Do we know why the parcels, why it wasn't coming to you? These
So-
parcels are owned by the airport, right?
Yeah, so, but they're also leased to different individuals, so they're not empty. They're leased to different companies, and depending on the lease document, some of our leases require the tenant to pay. So that's another component. We work with certain tenants to make sure that they're paying, and then another component is we pay, which is the $715,000. So depending on when that changed hands and where that documentation was going, some of it was old tenants that existed in the building.
So do we know how much of the back taxes was already paid by the tenants?
None at this point. So we're paying what we owe, and then the tenants are going to pay what they owe moving forward. So according to our calculations, it's probably around $500,000 that the tenants wind up paying on taxes.
That they already paid?
No, they haven't
That
paid.
they have not paid?
No, they haven't.
So wait, so the airport is going to advance that money?
No,
And then
no, there are certain taxes that we are required to pay under the leases. And these leases, we are required to pay these taxes, depending on how the lease was structured. There's other leases that it's the tenant's responsibility to pay the taxes. And these individual leases, the $715,000 is our requirement to pay as the airport, according to the lease.
So they're not the tenant's responsibility?
No, not the $715,000. The other $500,000 is other taxes that are due by our tenants.
Due for tax year 2020, for tax year 2021 or for when?
For our taxes going back to 2017, it's the $715,000. So to get us up to date to this point.
So you're paying back taxes.
Yeah, back and current taxes, yes.
So how
Did
much
anything
are-
go to tax sale?
Building 201 did, so we are paying on that building, which is the automotive place right in front of the airport.
So who, and they're willing to sell it back to you? So is it,
Yeah, so the way that works is they sell the tax roll, so we pay the taxes, and then the property itself hasn't actually sold, they sold the taxes. So if you don't pay those taxes, I think you have 12 calendar months, and then the property would potentially be sold.
so it hasn't sold yet?
No, the property
they
has,
haven't-
just the taxes.
Yeah,
were
right,
sold.
right.
Right,
So you're still in the
They
redemption
haven't taken
period?
title.
yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so I guess I'm confused. So the money that you're claiming, the 500,000 that's owed by the tenants, that's not for the back taxes then? Because you're saying the 715 is what the airport owes.
Two different conversations. So the
Okay.
$715,000 is under our requirement, and then there's another lease for Hangar 11, which will be that tenant's responsibility. So the $715,000 is solely our responsibility for other leases. But as we were going through this process to determine who owed what taxes under what leases, we own under certain leases. There's another lease on Hangar 11 that a tenant owes $500,000 that has really nothing to do with the $715,000. They're gonna two separate payments. But as I've been working to clean up the tax roll, there's taxes that are under the responsibility of the airport, depending on how the lease was structured, and then there's taxes that are under the responsibility of the tenant. So that $500,000 has nothing to do with our $715,000 that we're asking for tonight. That will be paid by them, required by them to pay on their back taxes.
Okay, so the 500,000 is still back taxes, or?
It is, and to get them current, yeah. So it's the same situation when these leases were signed. So it's multiple leases that were signed, right? So as the airport, we're basically the landlord of the airport itself. So depending on how a lease was structured, either we were required to pay the taxes or the tenant was required to pay the taxes. So as we started going back over how these leases were written over years, there are certain leases where that tenant was required to pay taxes and certain where the airport is. And this $715,000 cleans up those leases where we're required to pay the taxes.
So when you pay the 715,000, there'll still be 500,000 of taxes, back taxes still owing, is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you say again?
When you pay the 715,000, I apologize
Yeah.
for making this difficult.
No,
I'm
no,
trying to
fine, it's
understand.
fine.
There'll still be 500,000 of back taxes remaining owing?
Yes, but not on the properties that we're paying taxes for.
Right.
So the property that we're paying tax on, and I'll just say the names, there's Hangar 5, 6, and Building 201. Hangar 11, which is not part of the 715,000, is going to be paid by the tenant to pay for their back taxes. So we will get caught up to date on certain parcels of land, and then we will work with those tenants. We've already had conversations with them to make sure they get up on their taxes.
Okay, so, but but technically, you own all the property, they're just leasing.
Yes,
It's the
correct.
tenant. So ultimately, it's still the airport's responsibility.
Well, so we did talk with our legal counsel, and so the responsibility falls on the tenant. So one of our tenants that's responsible for this, they're a 40-year tenant, so We're working with them to make sure that they're going to pay up to date. But as far as I've been told by our legal counsel, we are not responsible for that money. The tenant is aware that they're responsible for it, and I don't see any issues in them paying that component. I think it goes back to where tax bills were being sent.
Right, but my only point was that technically we understand it's legally the tenant's responsibility,
Right.
but it's just like if I lease my property
Right.
to someone, I own the property.
Right.
The taxes don't get paid by my tenant.
Sure.
I'm still ultimately going to suffer for it, right? That's all I'm saying.
Sure, okay.
Right, okay, all right.
I had a question. Now, it took 5 years to figure out this, and your tax people didn't figure this out 5 years ago?
No. I wasn't here 5 years ago. I can't speak to how the leases were structured, but moving forward, I think the full stop is we're going to have accountability internally, right? If, as staff, we have a lease, we're required to pay taxes, we pay the taxes. If we're putting that on the tenant, we make sure they're paying the taxes. And I think part of the position that we hired under our Director of Finance will help us to make sure we're maintaining that with Cook County, who's paying what taxes and when they're supposed to pay it. But I can't speak to what happened 5 years ago, but kind of the full stop statement now is we're asking for this budget amendment to get up to date, and then moving forward, we're going to budget to pay the taxes on these properties that are our responsibility, and then making sure our tenants pay their taxes.
Okay, and you made sure that it's going to go to the right place that it needs to go to?
Well, that I will say it will go to Cook County. Beyond that, it's outside of my hands.
Okay.
So bottom line is, are the tax bills going to the right?
Oh,
and-
yeah.
Yeah.
So we went through with our tenants, the ones that were in question, and made sure that Cook County's database was up to date with the correct contact information.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to see property tax bills, whether it's by mail or however, going to
Right.
another entity, and it just kind of disappears and nobody knows about it.
Right, and I think that was part of the issue. But yes, we worked with their legal counsel, our legal counsel, to make sure that the Cook County tax records are up to date. And some of the former tenants or them are getting, there's a bunch of minutia stuff involved in there, but I think we're on the right path now with what we need, are required to do, and what are requiring our tenants to do.
All right. Thank you.
So then, the taxes for last year were not paid?
Correct.
Several years, is that what
Yes,
you're saying?
correct, yeah.
Okay. And it wasn't in the budget or
No.
last several years?
No.
Either? Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding this? Treasurer Tippett?
I just have one question. Normally Cook County charges 18% interest on unpaid taxes. Do you know how much money the airport owes that is actually interest?
I would have to get you that number, but I know for us, our tax bills are 1.5% from the time that it was due per month. So I'd have to go back and pull the numbers. I'd be happy to do that. I don't know out of that total, but 1.5% per month for, the last 5 years. So it is a significant amount. Oh, no, it does. Yeah, it adds up, and it adds up. That's why after, we were rushing to get to the point where we can make sure that we can get this tax bill settled so we can avoid the interest. But I would, off the top of my head, I'm not sure what that percentage makes up to be between the two.
Yeah, I think once the taxes are sold, then that interest rate goes up. If it's
It does.
directly
Yeah.
from.
It does.
The initial tax bills are 1.5%, but
It does.
it goes up after they're sold.
Correct.
So,
Has your legal
Go ahead.
counsel, have they been able to negotiate any of the tax interest? for
They're
for
having
the parcels that weren't sold, and the ones that are sold, we can't do anything about, but.
Yeah, they're having conversations with Cook County, but it's difficult. We have no resolution on paying penalties. We are going to pay it all up front. I think that there'll be opportunities to ask for getting it back, but what we want to do is stop incurring any interest on the back tax bills.
now the 715, is that including interest, or is that?
Yes, it does.
That includes
Yep,
interest?
that gets everything squared away, yep.
Okay. No discounts, huh? Come on, Jeff.
Yeah, I know, right? Yes, trying, but like I said, I think for us, and that was our recommendation to the board, is just to get caught up on all the taxes, and then if there's a way for them to, work with us on the interest. But I think realistically, us at least getting to the point where we're not owing money.
I know this horse is already dead, but just a couple more questions here. The $715,000, is that really lost? Because if it was property you guys owned and were leasing, you assume the taxes in whatever you were charging for the lease. So this isn't, you guys just have now had better budgets and year-end budget, no, year-end financials were better, and you recognize gains that you wouldn't have. So it's not as if this is sunk. I mean, this was already appropriated and accounted for when you were charging your tenants, correct?
Correct.
Shine a little sunlight on it, sunshine on it, correct?
Yeah, each lease agreement, depending on the lease agreement, does make money, even with paying the taxes. Obviously, moving forward, depending on the leases that we have, I think us taking a look at it and making recommendations to the board on should we adjust rental rates now that, you know, I would hope 5 years ago that was part of it, but I will say each lease is making money. Like you said, it's not as good as it was, but there's no lease that's in there that's not producing revenue for the airport. It's just maybe looking forward, we may have to adjust rental rates depending. I mean, that's still something as staff will take back as a recommendation to the board.
The only other thing I'd comment on is that if you have people that did not pay the taxes and they breached their lease with you, I would think you'd have the right to go in and say you're going to pay them and take it from them and not let them be responsible for it.
Right.
And all the property should be paid by the airport with a bill if you're going to segregate taxes in the lease
Right.
to the property, to whoever's leasing it.
Yeah, it's a good point. I
versus
mean, that's
not letting-
definitely something.
I just can't imagine letting
Right.
somebody else be responsible for that.
Right. Yeah, I think our staff is looking at it as well, because there's a lot of boundary lines. There's a lot of things that just, from the airport, from being private to being a part of the municipalities, that we need to go through. This is the first kind of step of making sure, but it's a good point and a good thought, and I think it's something to take back and consider for the board.
I know you don't want to put it out up front, and that's a problem with it, because
Right.
you're then
Yeah.
billing them versus
Right,
them paying it, but
right.
So just to clarify, and I apologize, but.
No.
Just to clarify, are all these leases that you're talking about, the 715,000 net leases, meaning they include real estate taxes?
Well, the $715,000, those leases that I'm talking about that we're getting up on, it's clearly stated in the lease that we are responsible for paying the taxes on those.
But even though you're responsible for paying the taxes, you're saying that the taxes have been, basically that they have been, transferred to the tenant in terms of, in other words, the tenant's rent is covering that tax liability.
Yeah, so whether it was taken directly into consideration when they made the rental rate for like hangar 5 and 6, that rate does cover us. So like in 5 and 6, we pay the utilities as the airport. But that rate itself that we're charging, paying taxes and paying things like utilities, we still show that we're making money on hangar 5 and 6. And then those other hangars that the tenant is responsible for paying the taxes, like hangar 11, that is a triple net. And it clearly is stated in their lease that they have to pay the taxes. I hope that helps.
But you probably don't know, as you stand here, whether, once the taxes are paid for the other hangars where it wasn't a triple net lease, whether you actually made a profit on those.
No, we did.
You did?
Yeah, we did all the calculations. Everything that we have at the airport right now, we're making money on, even with
Okay.
paying the taxes, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
that was my question, okay.
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry for the
Okay,
confusion
That's all right.
before.
Any other questions on this item? All right, thank you very much for explaining that to us. I appreciate it. For this consent agenda, we do have a motion and a second. If there are no other questions, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Alderman Cameron,
Aye.
Alderman Ludvixson,
aye.
Alderman Dash,
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams,
Aye.
Alderman Dolan.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. There is no old business. Item 9, new business. First item is a request for waiver of first reading. This is a staff memo in ordinance amending Title 1, Chapter 5, Section 2, and Section 5, changing the city council workshop meetings into regular meetings. Again, this is just a waiver of first reading to begin with, but this is something that I mentioned at a previous meeting, something that Joe and I had talked about. We were going to change all city council meetings to regular city council meetings. We're not going to address workshop items there. We are going to have a workshop meeting at least twice a year at a separate time, separate from a regular city council meeting. We wanted to do one perhaps in mid to late January so that we have items covered before we get into the budget season, and then another meeting perhaps in midsummer, early summer, maybe June. But that was the idea for this. We can open this up to discussion in a moment, but first, as I said, this is a request of waiver of first reading. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding this change in our meeting process?
I just have one question about the ordinance.
Sure.
So on page 82, so where it says reports and communications from mayor, then it says officers and special commissions. Shouldn't it say mayor, elected officials, and staff? And then you could say and special commissions, but,
You're concerned about the wording of it?
yeah.
Joe or Peter?
What was your
Or-
question again, please?
Well, it says reports and commissions, and it says the mayor, officers, and special commissions, and I thought it would say mayor, elected officials, staff, and if you want to say special commission.
Can you direct me to what section you're referring to, I'm sorry?
Page 82, number 6.
I know I don't have what you have.
Oh,
So I have the ordinance itself, so.
so that is, it is the ordinance, it's on the, it would be the third page of the ordinance.
Do you want to just give me your?
Mr. Mayor, may I jump
And I
in?
was going to ask city attorney if you have a...
Yeah, I believe that we're going to be doing some other minor
You're waiting,
tweaks to this part of the,
Handwritten.
we're going to be making some minor alterations, updates to this part of the code, maybe in December even.
Okay.
And perhaps you and I can go over it
Okay.
ahead of time for that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Alderperson Morgan Adams, that's the same language, we haven't changed that. That's the same language from when it was originally passed back in 2013. So if
That
you-
may be, I just wanted to.
Yeah, so if you want further changes on this, we can do that as well.
And then I want to understand, so for the item, so for the items that are going to be discussed, like it's going to be almost like a strategic direction discussions, those items will be either, the mayor will bring them up, or two aldermen, like in writing, would request they be put on the agenda? That's basically how, or are there other ways that you want, that we're going to do it? That's what it says, that's why I want to make sure.
There may also be items that resonate from staff.
Okay.
We're going to try to keep this so that the council doesn't get into the weeds. With, the idea of you don't want to get into micromanaging, but we will have more strategic issues. Stormwater is always going to be a topic of long-term strategic
Right.
discussion.
Right.
The sidewalk network, public safety, those types of things. Understandably, we're adding, thank you, city council as well as staff, we're adding 2 nights to the calendar. But we think it'd be more productive to have it centralized in specific meetings rather than once a month with the workshop item. Sometimes my feeling with the workshop item, that almost seems like we've got to come up. I don't know how many times we talked about term limits.
Right.
So those are things we're trying to put on more of a strategic direction, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea was to not get bogged down in a city council meeting, a regular meeting, because we still have business to conduct. And sometimes this can be a distraction, so we're trying to separate the two. So it's my understanding that we understand the change in this. It's just a matter of maybe a tweak in some of the language of the ordinance itself. So I don't believe we had a motion yet. Could I have a motion? We do? Okay, I'm sorry.
A vote on A.
Thank you. Could I have a roll call?
Yes,
Please.
thank you. Mayor Dolick,
Aye.
Alderman Dash,
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams,
Aye.
Alderman Lovickson,
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Item B, it's the second reading, staff memo and ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 5, Section 2, and Section 5, changing city council workshop meetings into a regular meeting. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Morgan Adams?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or discussion on this? Then could I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Dash?
Aye.
Alderman Cameron?
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams?
Aye.
Alderman Lovickson?
Aye.
Mayor Dolick?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Item C, staff memo and ordinance, the police pension levy. This is a first reading. First, could I have this is just a first reading, I'm sorry. Joe, would you like to expand on this?
I'm going to defer to our finance director, Sherry Grafin, who's
Okay, thank
done the modeling for the series of, that we have tonight of the tax levies.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The tax levy this year reflects a 6.9493% increase I'm referring to the schedule that was included in the agenda and where all the numbers are listed. We really only have any sort of leeway on those three levies, the police pension fund and the two SSAs. Given our non-home rule status, the only other levies we'll get will be directed by the county for our debt, our two debt issuances. Those are just based exactly on what our payments will be coming due that year. And so those are given to us automatically by the county with no leeway on those numbers. So this year, we're going to ask for the 6.94% for a couple reasons. EAV numbers that we were provided are estimates, and they'll be finalized sometimes next year. So we want to be able to capture as much increase over our EAV than was given to us preliminarily, plus any sort of increased operating costs for maintenance or anything that happens next year due to inflation. This year, there was a reduction in our EAV, about 39 million. When I talked to the county, they pointed out their equalization factor at the state level, which is a factor that they use in their calculations of EAV. The state decreased it from 3.223 in 2020 to 3.0027. That had a direct impact on the city's overall EAV. You'll see on the list there, it was 414. Last year, it was 454. So that's going to impact our calculations as well when the extensions finally do come. Regardless of the number we're asking for, we'll be limited by 5%. But we just went over there, based on the fact that the EAV is preliminary yet, as well as any new property that will be credited for. We had that TIF, the small Palatine Road TIF expired, so that's going to pull in about 1.2 maybe additional EAV. So we wanted to just capture as much as we can. But we will still be limited to the 5% once the final calculations come out.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Director Chapin?
Yes, can you just tell everybody so we all know what what is the percent,
9.4.
yes, is an increase over the previous year's actual dollars?
It's $53,000 more in total. We're asking for 29,000. It's in that second to last column. 29,000 more for the police pension,
I see it.
2,000 more on SSA 5, and 10,000 more on SSA 8. So overall, the city's request is those three are increasing and our debts are decreasing. So if you see that net number, our overall levy is going down by 53,000 based on this estimate. We're only able to affect those three that are labeled at the 6.94%. And that's why we fell under the truth in taxation. Those three levies are over the 5%. But when you reduce it by our debt based on our required payments, our overall levy is decreasing the 2.44% when you combine all five numbers together.
Yeah, I just wanted, I saw it was there, but I just wanted
Yep.
to have you say what the number was, because you hear 6-point-some% increase,
It's,
you're thinking millions of dollars, and it's not the case.
Right,
It's not,
right.
maybe some towns around us, if they raise their overall levies by 6 point,
It would be much greater.
huge number.
Our total last year extended by the county, we got our final numbers in just recently, 2.184. 2,184,000 was the 2021 extension. We're proposing a 2.131 total extension to the city. Again, that incorporates the reduction in our debt payments for that next year at 2024. So overall, it's a reduction.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Item D, staff memo and ordinance for SSA 1 levy. Again, I'll refer back to Director Grafen if you have any information you want to add to this.
I'll just, if I can talk about all these kind of all together.
That would be easier, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ordinance number 31 is the police pension levy. That's requesting the 450,000. SSA 1, 2, 3, and 4 are still active, and those are all at zero, as they have historically been for the last several years. Then SSA 5 and 8, those will bring in our numbers 31,390 for 5, and 161,150 will be for 8. So 3 of those levies have a number in them. The other 4 are just zero, as we've reported in the past.
All right, thank you. Again, any questions for Director Grafen?
So the only ones that we have the ability to do anything with and set a levy on, I know you listed off all the SSAs that are at zero, but the ones that are active are the police pension levy, SSA 5, which is a drainage, stormwater levy on the east side, and SSA 8, which is the water, is that the water
Levy
levy?
37.
Levy 37? Okay. Other than that, we don't have any say over the rate.
No.
3 and 4 are still active.
They're still active, right. So rather than having Cook County think that we forgot to file it or anything, we were advised to just continue filing at zero.
And there's some money left in some.
And SSA 4 is being collected by, the residents are paying that, correct?
SSAs 1, 2, 3, and 4, the council may remember, were for the Old Town Sanitary District.
Right.
So ever since we switched over and we put that on as a kind of pay-as-you-go quarterly,
Right, right.
we've been levying a 0% levy
0%,
for
okay.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, right.
Those made up the
Just
sanitary districts.
Right, okay, okay.
Yeah, those are still active because there is some money left in some of those, which will be used for, and Mark can address this, for repairs,
Right,
Camry,
right.
Camry, scoping, doing all that stuff.
Okay,
But also, as Sherry mentioned, legal at the time gave us the opinion that instead of canceling 1, 2, 3, and 4, it may confuse Cook County, so that we should just levy 0 and just keep it going that way. So
Okay.
it's just a little extra work for staff, but not too much.
all right, thank you. Thank you, Peter.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. There is no action on any of these. Brings us to staff elected officials and commission reports. We do have the November financial report presented by Finance Director Sherry Grafen.
The financial report for the month of October was included in the agenda. At this point in the year, we're pretty much right on target. We're at 54% of our total revenues. A couple items I just wanted to bring up. The property taxes, the bills are supposed to be online any day now, and in the mail, December 1st is the last communication I've had. They are still going to require the due date of December 30th. So given that, we're expecting our cash flow to come in January, February. We should be able to collect that second installment of taxes. They're not online as of this minute, but any day now. The hotel tax I wanted to mention as well, they have come back and have improved greatly from what we anticipated. The first 6 months of fiscal 20 of this year, we are at 327,000 collected versus last year it was 216. So that's almost a 51% increase in the first 6 months of operation in this fiscal year. So hoping that will continue, and we will be pretty close to, well, definitely over our budget. Our budget was 375. If we even match the first 6 months, we'll be up almost over 500. So that'll be that revenue stream's really come back this year. So I wanted to point that out.
Great.
That's about all I had on the financial report. If anybody has any more specific questions, happy to answer. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Right. Any questions? All right, then I will go through the other elected officials if you have any reports. Alderman, Ward 1, Michelle Cameron.
No report, thank you.
Ward 2, Pat Levinson.
No report, thank you.
Ward 3, Wendy Morgan Adams.
No report, thank you.
Ward 4, Danielle Dash.
No report.
I have no report other than to say thank you to, again, to everyone who participated and planned out the tree lighting ceremony this past weekend. It was a good event with a very nice turnout. City Treasurer Rich Tibbetts.
No report, Mayor.
And City Administrator Joe Wade.
No report, thank you.
Assistant City Administrator Peter Falcone.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Director Grafin, you've given your report. Do you have anything else to add? Director of Building and Development, Mr. Peterson.
No report this evening, sir.
I will ask once again, is there any update on the cell tower behind the fire district? I know a lot of work has been going on. There are residents that I know watch these meetings. They're a little curious.
Yes. The most recent communication I've had with the structural engineer for Crown Castle is that they can't determine the exact cause. Our plan reviewer, our engineering plan reviewer, reviewed the calculations, their calculations. They believe they were getting some unusual wind patterns either over the trees or behind the buildings. That being said, they are in the process of redesigning the tower and are expected to have preliminary repair plans prior to Christmas, and they are hoping that they can move forward to getting the cell tower back online sometime in early 2023.
Okay, and that's all on the shoulders of Crown Castle.
Correct.
Financial requirements.
Correct. Everything is on theirs. They're trying to figure out. They're a little bewildered by the what they discovered.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick note on that. That was a very contentious topic when it occurred a couple of years ago when that was approved. I would just ask that Crown, provide as much detail early on with what they want to do so that we don't end up at the end like before and they say you got to take what we give you. So I'm hoping that if they're replacing that tower, that they're going to give you, options to say, hey, let's talk about what we can do, what we allow, what we won't allow, just to make sure we don't go through what we did before.
That message was communicated loud and clear to the design and engineering department. We don't know if it's going to come back to reuse the existing structure like they did do, or if it's going to be new like the original proposal was back 4 years ago. So I am on their email chain, so as soon as I get something, I will keep the board apprised.
All right. Thank you. And if it does go that direction, does that come back before the council for an approval of a plan? Or is this, since it was approved originally, does it just go through?
If there are changes, if to bring the council back some history, the Plan Commission had recommended approval of a new tower on the site. However, when it came to council, due to the communications with the residents and the desires of the council, the Crown Castle changed from the new tower system with a certain type of concealment feature to the reusing the same tower that's there, only structurally reinforcing it with the shroud. So therefore, if they come back with any change other than what was approved by the council, it would come back to the council. It wouldn't necessarily have to go back to the PZBA because they had already recommended a standalone tower.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Public Works Director, Mark Roscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll also replay your last statement. Thanks to everyone involved with tree lighting, all of our helpers and everyone that's involved. We had a great evening, and the weather held out. An update on the NICOR project that's going through town. We've been getting a couple calls from residents inquiring on what's happening. NICOR has sent out information to all the residents along the route. They're currently working on Elmhurst Road, and they're going to be making their way across Camp McDonald to across Elmhurst Road over to the parking lot by Deli for You, and then they're making their way south towards Euclid Avenue. So they'll be going down Maple and Brook through the neighborhood down there. So as residents see workers in the parkway working on the big pipes, that's what's happening. There's a representative from NICOR who's been really great to work with. His name is Andy. We have his number at City Hall. It's been sent out on the flyers, and they've been a great contact for that. So that's going to be continuing for a few more months. They don't stop with the winter activity. They continue forward. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Police Chief Caponegro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I'm pleased to announce that I've made a conditional offer to Prospect Heights' very first full-time social worker. Everything goes well, she'll start in a couple weeks, and I'm certain you all will like her. She's energetic. She has a vision of and believes that she can help change things very quickly and help a lot of citizens here in Prospect Heights, and she's going to be terrific. Also, Sophia Teravolis successfully completed her field training program, and therefore she is now considered a manpower, which is great news. And in 3 weeks, we should have another 2 that are currently in field training, and we will almost be at full staff once again. That hasn't happened in a couple years, so so far so good. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, it's good news. Thank you. Deputy Clerk Schultheis.
No report, Mayor.
Attorney John O'Driscoll.
No report, Mayor.
Digital Communications Technician Mr. Colvin.
No report, Mayor.
All right, thank you. That brings us to the approval of warrants. Deputy Clerk Schultheis, if you could read the warrants for us.
Thank you. The total is $428,316.23. Wire payments of 11/18/2022 payroll of $186,663.35 for a total warrant of $614,979.58.
All right, could I have a motion to approve as presented?
So moved, Morgan Adams.
Second, Cameron.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections? There being none, could I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Ludvixson.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Dash.
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Mayor Dolick.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Item 12, public comments on non-agenda matters. Is anyone registered, or does anyone wish to speak?
No one has registered, Mayor.
If there are no comments, we do not have executive session this evening. That brings us to adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.